Quality, 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 quality. Good morning, everybody. Namaskar. This is Engineer Suraj Singh speaking from Bharat, India on this day, December 5th, 2021, Sunday. नमस्कार, मैं सूरज सिंह सिविल इंजीनियर भारत से बोल रहा हूँ, भारत इंडिया से। और आज दिसंबर 5, 2021 के 3:43 3:43 AM Sunday, and back to you about topic of quality and safety and of course contracts. Quality, safety and contracts, and title being field engineering, engineers relations to quality, contracts like red, silver and white, as well as and contracts. Organizations, communication, coordination, and why all these about quality issues. And of course, we say these competency certificates, as we usually define, like professional engineer at national level or professional engineer at international level, chartered engineer according to law, and of course corporate membership of statutory bodies or institutions, chartered bodies or institutions, and quality related issues in general. These are daily issues. This is like introduction every day, and this is my introduction of identification. This is, I am member of this institution here, Institution of Engineers India, incorporated by Royal Charter in 1935, and this is my photograph. I have been chartered engineer, and still on this date I am chartered engineer in corporate membership of category FIE, that is Fellow of Institution of Engineers, and of course I am certified International Professional Engineer, and I have been on roll of International Professional Engineer India since 2012, and I had been on roll of Professional Engineer India since 1995. I belong to civil engineering profession, and my email ID is herein, that is Suraj SURAJ underscore engineer ENGINEER at yahoo.co.uk, and this is my address and mail telephone number. I would prefer emails communication, because I can attend these. I don't in sending something, send email ID communication so that I may be successful in responding to you. And here is certification of Chartered Engineer India, the certification of Professional Engineer, the certification of membership, and here is file, that is general file that demands questions and answers and product to be quality 1, communication and coordination, which are considered very significant in profession, not only in engineering profession but also in every profession. कम्युनिकेशन हो, संचार हो, कोऑर्डिनेशन हो, तालमेल हो, ये हर वृत्ति में आवश्यक है। वो अभियंत्री हो, इंजीनियरिंग हो, और प्रैक्टिकली मेडिकल भी क्यों ना हो, जिसमें टेस्टों की कोऑर्डिनेशन की जाती है बॉडी के प्रोसेस के हिसाब से। और कोई भी, चाहे अकाउंटेंसी का प्रोफेशन हो या कोई और भी वृत्ति हो, उसमें ये सब ज़रूरी है, आवश्यक है। और लाइफ में भी कोऑर्डिनेशन या कम्युनिकेशन बहुत आवश्यक है अगर आपको सही काम करना है। और यदि समय व्यर्थ करना है तो आपके पास समय व्यर्थ करने के बहुत तरीके हैं, बहुत मेथड्स हैं कि समय को कैसे व्यर्थ किया जाए। इसके लिए बताने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। और इसलिए मैं सर्टिफिकेट भी क्लोज करता हूँ अभी, क्योंकि सर्टिफिकेट फिर खुल जाएंगे। और आवश्यक तो यह है कि हम अपने आप को संभालें, सही तरह से अपने आप को समझें, कोऑर्डिनेशन कम्युनिकेशन कैसे हो, क्या हो, बहुत ज़रूरी बात। नहीं तो सब बेकार की बातें हैं। कोऑर्डिनेशन अगर हम करेंगे, सही तरह से तालमेल बिठाएंगे तो बहुत कुछ पाया जा सकता है। मैं ना मोबाइल के खिलाफ हूँ, ना किसी और डिवाइस के खिलाफ हूँ। खिलाफ नहीं मैं कह सकता, यूज़ तो सब करते हैं, हम भी करते हैं, आप भी करते हैं। उसका सही प्रयोग किया जाए, सही इस्तेमाल किया जाए। वी हैव टू यूज़ दैट डिवाइस फॉर आवर गुड एंड फॉर अदर्स गुड। आप देखते होंगे, हम भी देखते हैं, दिन में बिना मतलब की कॉलें आती हैं जिससे हमें कोई लेना देना नहीं है। आप बिज़ी हैं, काम कर रहे हैं, सोच रहे हैं, किसी चिंता में हैं, लेकिन आपको कॉल पे कॉल आई जाएंगी। क्रेडिट कार्ड चाहिए, लोन चाहिए, ये चाहिए, वो चाहिए, जिससे आपको कोई लेना देना नहीं, क्योंकि उनको एक अच्छा रास्ता मिल गया अपना एडवर्टाइजमेंट के लिए, पब्लिसिटी के लिए। तंग कौन हो रहा है? तंग पब्लिक के मेंबर्स हो रहे हैं, हम हो रहे हैं, आप हो रहे हैं। उनको तो सस्ते में मिल गया, बस एसएमएस भेजे जाएंगे या आपको फ़ोन किए जाएंगे। आप किसी भी कंसंट्रेशन में हो, कहीं भी बिज़ी हो, उनको कोई मतलब नहीं, और आपको डिस्टर्ब कर देंगे। आप अटेंड करेंगे, हो सकता है बहुत अर्जेंट कॉल हो किसी की, और इस तरह से आप ना तो काम में कंसंट्रेट कर पाएंगे, ना लिखते वक्त आपको छूटना पड़ेगा। इसलिए मैं कहता हूँ कि ये एक बदतमीज़ी है, मैं इसको बदतमीज़ी मानता हूँ। एक तरह का इंटेलेक्चुअल टेररिज्म है, क्योंकि आप अननेसेसरी किसी को तंग कर रहे हैं। मैं आपकी कॉल नहीं लेना चाहता, पर मैं नहीं जानता वो कॉल किसकी है, इसीलिए कई बार मजबूरी होती है कि आपको वो फ़ोन उठाना पड़ता है। और पता लगता है कि आप कार है आपके पास, आपको कार की सर्विस चाहिए या आपको मेंटेनेंस चाहिए। अब बताइए, इतना अर्जेंट है ये क्वेश्चन। एक ज़माना था कुछ समय पहले, इनके रिप्रेजेंटेटिव घर पे आते थे, पूछते थे हमारी सर्विस ऐसी है, अगर आपको इसमें कोई आवश्यकता है तो हम तैयार हैं। It was like that before. Now for everything you shall find that mobile device is being used and abused. प्लॉट की इंफॉर्मेशन, फ्लैट की इंफॉर्मेशन, अपार्टमेंट की इंफॉर्मेशन, बिना मतलब की इंफॉर्मेशन। अरे हमें आवश्यकता होगी तो हम खुद ढूंढ लेंगे। आप क्यों परेशान होते हैं? आप परेशान इसलिए होते हैं कि आपने एक या दो व्यक्तियों को कॉल सेंटर में या कहीं एंगेज कर दिया। बस ये कॉल किए जाओ और ये सेंटेंस हैं बोले जाओ, या वो भी रिकॉर्ड कर देते हैं, और हजारों लोग परेशान आपकी कॉल को अटेंड करें। आप सबको डिस्टर्ब करते हैं, ये अच्छी बात तो नहीं है। इसलिए मेरा कहने का मतलब है कि हमको समझना होगा, कम्युनिकेशन को बर्बादी से बचाना होगा, क्योंकि हम नहीं चाहते बिना मतलब के डिस्टर्ब किया जाए। आप सो रहे हैं, रेस्ट कर रहे हैं, कॉल आएगी, कोई मतलब नहीं है। कब तक आप अटेंड नहीं करेंगे? क्योंकि कॉल ज़रूरी भी हो सकती है। अगर आपके पास 50 कॉल आई, 2-3 जरूरी होंगी और 47 कॉल बेकार है, 47 कॉल ऑफ नो यूज। सो दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग। कम्युनिकेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट which we cannot abuse, but it is being abused. SMSs are being abused. You will find repetitive abuses, repetitive SMS for nothing, बिना मतलब के, जिससे आपको कोई लेना देना नहीं है. Really, it is very much upsetting issue. I don't understand why people are not realizing this. We should not deal with such people who abuse like this. We should condemn them. Why you waste my time? What right you have got to waste my time? And why these service providers, maybe Airtel or someone else, why do they sell their lists to these people? They sell lists, they make money, and these people save their money by sending messages to lakhs and lakhs of people around every country. This is not acceptable. That is why I say overuse or excess of whatever is not good, it's bad. We use it as it is our right. If you talk to them abruptly or you talk to them politely, it is your decision. Some people like this. Maybe there are certain females sitting on that side and they are interested in talking to them. Well, it's one's choice. I have nothing to say. But I would say, do not disturb me, and that's it. And you would say, then you block their calls. How can I block calls? How do I know? How many numbers can I block? And if you start blocking, means your whole system is blocked. Well, I'm talking of quality. This was also a part of quality because survival has been questioned, smooth working has been questioned. हम कैसे काम करें, डिस्टर्ब कोई ना करे, हमको व्यवधान होता है. व्यवधान कहते हैं ना, डिस्टर्बेंस. हमको चाहिए, we are interested in construction quality, we are interested in production quality, manufacturing quality, services quality, education quality, quality in society and individual, and of course quality in communication and coordination. Quality required everywhere, in every activity in life. And of course engineering is one of top profession where communication and quality does and do both, I say, relative roles, because engineering and life are directly related. We cannot dispense them. These are indispensable. Engineering means whole world. Engineering means whole world. Equivalent word in Hindi language of quality is gunavatta. Nirman is construction. Jivan is life. Seva is services. Karya is work. Shiksha is education. Samaj is society. Vyakti is individual. And avashyak is essential. We have to be very much smart in this way, and abuse of our time means we cannot live qualitatively. You are driving and you get a call. You are in graveyard and you get a call. You are talking to someone important and you get a call. You know everything. I did not know to explain this, but you know everything. Quality has to be complied with requirements. Whatever requirements have been defined, specified, and of course within ambit of work, designed valid specifications. गुणवत्ता अभियंताओं के हाथ में है. अभियंताओं का मतलब इंजीनियर से है और इन्हें लागू करना होगा. गुणवत्ता नहीं तो भविष्य नहीं. This is also true. Quality ranges in elaboration. Elaboration means in details, depending on indicative descriptions. And there exists no unlimited scope of quality criteria to be carried out. आप कहेंगे मैं रोज रोज एक ही बात लेके बैठ जाता हूँ. बिल्कुल सही है. आप अगर अपना टाइम खराब करवा सकते हैं इन मोबाइल एब्यूजर्स के हाथ में, तो थोड़ा समय आप अच्छे काम के लिए भी तो सोच सकते हैं। मैं आपको इस तरह से कहलवाना चाहता हूँ कि आप क्वालिटी की तरफ ध्यान दें। थ्रू दिस टॉक I want to draw your attention to state of bad quality in every field. No quality exists. Yes, we may be in deception that we are having quality, but facts remain that quality has gone. I don't know where it has gone. It has gone to unknown destinations. We can't find those destinations. We can't pull it back. We have to be clear about it. Quality is my right and quality is your right. Quality is right of every customer, every consumer, every individual. Because product is for me, and if product is not qualitative, how can I prefer that product? But why should I waste my time when I pay? When I pay something, I should get back that equivalent. But it doesn't happen in 99% cases. Hardly maybe 1% people, 1% industry who are bothered about quality. Otherwise, there's no research on post sale. There is no research from companies. They are only interested in feedback services. They want to know how our service was. They never try to know how a product was after sales. Yes, they will say, okay, we will send technician, it will repair. But they are not interested to know why that product has gone out of service. Means in name of warranty, in name of guarantee, they play with quality. And I have no excuse in admitting that there is always failure of quality, quality which is essential and which is a must and a must and a must. And engineers have to realize this fact. Civil engineer is that profession where without quality nothing can move out, nothing can go in. And first requirement of quality must be taught at school level and university level, because there is no concern about that. Quality must be understood at its initial stages in schools, in colleges, in every education, professional education and other education, because quality means it works at every point in your life. It's not only in product, it's only conduct also that should be qualitative. It should be thoughts also that should be qualitative. If professor cannot teach a student what is quality, if a lecturer cannot teach a student what is quality, then what is meaning of education? Do we have quality education? That's also my point of view. Why don't we have? Why do we orient education to profession of earning? Why do you orient it to or link it to what packages you'll get? Means if quality falls, whole society falls, I can say. That's also very much true. Engineers design structures, and structures, building structure, other structure on which loads are applied. Design of structures or design of whatever work is an intellectual activity. Only those people who are either God gifted or who have certain primary education like engineering degree, they can only design. And then design not only because of intuition, they design because of knowledge, because of methods and formula. And they know how that structure is going to be performed to serve for its entire life. And life of structure is not for 1 day or 2 days, just like life of some device or life of some product we buy and consume. Life of structures can be 50 years, 100 years, I think not less than 3 or 4 decades. And if you want to construct that, construction requires some designs input and designs, and that designs are done by engineers, which means engineers are responsible for long-term activities, long-term products, It's not only a juice packet you take and drink, or it's not vegetable you buy today and cook. It is product of building, it's product structure, and whatever product that works for you, that serves you for many decades to come. And we have to think about that. डिज़ाइन करना, ड्राइंग बना के दे देना और ये बता देना कि आपको ऐसे काम करना है, काफ़ी नहीं है। इंजीनियर को देखना चाहिए कि ये डिज़ाइन क्या वो आदमी जो साइट पे कार्यस्थल पे होगा, जो इस काम की देख रेख करेगा होने के लिए, करने के लिए, कंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए, क्या ये ड्राइंग कम्युनिकेट करती हैं उसको पूरी इन्फॉर्मेशन, पूरी सूचना कि आपको करना क्या है। ये एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न है। मैं जो ड्राइंग दे रहा हूँ, मैं अपने आप को उस जगह रख के सोचूं, उस साइट पे रख के कि जहाँ ये बनना है, क्या मैं उसको पूरी सुविधा दे रहा हूँ इन ड्राइंग्स में। वो समझ पाएगा कि काम किस तरह से होना है, कैसे होना है। क्या मैं पूरी डायरेक्शन दे रहा हूँ, या मैं सोच रहा हूँ कि आदि अपने आप ही सोच लेगा क्या करना चाहिए। बस यहीं पर गड़बड़ हो जाती है। डिज़ाइनर सोच लेता है कि वो भी तो प्रोफेशनल है, मैं उसको क्यों बताऊँ, उसको आना चाहिए। ये एक एजम्पशन है, एक कल्पना है। जब आदमी साइट पर होता है, कार्यस्थल पे होता है, आप नहीं उसको समझ सकते कि वो कंसंट्रेट करेगा इन चीज़ों पे, क्योंकि इसके अलावा भी बहुत से काम हैं। लेकिन ड्राइंग्स एक लैंग्वेज से बनती है, ड्राइंग एक पावर है, एक शक्ति है। ड्राइंग स्पेसिफिकेशन भी होती है, ड्राइंग प्लान एलिवेशन भी होती है, ड्राइंग सेक्शन भी होती है, और ये सब चीज़ें ही ड्राइंग होती हैं। अगर ये आप नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं तो आप समझ लीजिए, आपकी ड्यूटी बनती है, आपका कर्तव्य बनता है एक डिज़ाइनर की हैसियत से कि आप पूरी इन्फॉर्मेशन ड्राइंग में दें, जिससे कि अगर वो एक कम जानकार भी है, कम जानकारी भी रखता है, तो आपके लिखे हुए को पढ़ के काम कर सके। पर ऐसा होता नहीं है, ऐसा होता नहीं है। जो नहीं देना चाहिए वो दिया जाता है, जो देना चाहिए वो नहीं दिया जाता है। इसीलिए मैं कहता हूँ, पहले डिज़ाइन की क्वालिटी भी सही होनी चाहिए। बात डिटेल्स की नहीं है, बात प्रोसीजर की है। ये आप जो दे रहे हैं, आपको स्वयं सोचना होगा कि आप क्या सही दे रहे हैं। आप पूरी सूचना which must be read and must be understood in a simplified way what we have to do. And if that is not done in that way, you can say there shall be lapses in work, and that lapses means quality certainly would go to fall. And if quality falls, you cannot see that something's to work. Therefore, it's very essential that at design stage, quality criteria in design must be taken care of by engineers only. Simply saying I'm a structural engineer, it doesn't mean anything until you have done some structural work. You cannot leave it to site alone. You must know what problems would develop on this project. Simply saying I'm a structural engineer, I have no responsibility of site, that does not fit in right answer. It's your responsibility to make sure that whatever design I am giving, it should be comfortably worked out. Worker on site, engineer on site should not find any problem in carrying out that work. That contemplation must be made, must be charted out. And if you cannot do that, then there's a deficiency in your work, in your procedure, and not on site procedure. I read some notes, some professor, some structural engineer said, okay, we will do this right, but we do not know how site shall go ahead. Why don't you know? You prescribe everything, you write everything on notes in brief. They say you have to do this and do this and do this. Don't go to tell codes say that. Codes people don't really understand. They don't read at sight of codes. Nobody refers to them. You have to write down pointed specifications on drawing. If it's not separately, this test you have to conduct, this test you have to conduct, this test you have to conduct. Can't you write 3 or 4 tests in each and every item? Every item doesn't have 2 or 3 tests. Aggregate test, for example, in concrete, coarse aggregate test, 5 aggregate tests, oil you can say in soil, full range test or half range test. You can just prescribe that in very simple form, but you can prescribe only when you know it. And if you know I'm not concerned with that, I'm concerned with designs only, in that case you are at mistake and not that person. We have to realize these facts, When we have full procedure well defined and we coordinate with each other rightly, and therefore we can say prosecution is very significant from performance viewpoint, and performance is significant from design viewpoint, and design is very significant from every viewpoint. And of course contracts means design contracts, or contracts means work contracts, and we call construction contract, or we call procurement contract and construction contract and design contract. Generally we call it EPC contracts. That's what I say, construction based on reasonable coordination. And say in construction very important stage exists how to construct something. How to construct, it's very important point. Means one construction is that we'll try and do it and we'll spoil it. That's one point of view. Okay, we'll try. Somebody says, no, we'll try and see. A site is not a trial, my dear. Site is not a trial. It's not a trial center. It's work. Somebody is spending money. Somebody spends money on material, on workers. Once I do something, once I carry out work on site, I cannot replace it because it is permanent work. You can't say we try. We can't say you try. You have to do it permanently. What work I do or you do on site, that work for a couple of decades, maybe 50 years, 100 years. You can't experiment like this. That's why we must know before doing something, before executing or prosecution of something, before prosecute something, what is best way of doing that. What is best way of doing that? That point must be studied properly, evaluated properly by relevant engineers, and of course it's very important activity. It must be done at time of designs as well. But it's of course direct responsibility of those engineers who handle works at site, that they should know, because every work can be done in different ways. Out of those different ways, what is best way, that site engineer or those working on sites, or their if they are in capacity of management or organization, they can decide what is best way, and that decision should be in written form. It's not simply thinking form. That should be written and communicated to those engineers and those responsible frontline workers like foreman, charge hand, etc., who have to directly work on site. And this should be displayed in that way, communicated that way in expression form or in verbatim. And of course, surveillance is important. So, method statement, we name it, this document which we prepare, it's called construction method statement or procedure method statement, which covers generally all works on site, and each method statement covers titular heads like what is the scope of work, what are references, and what material we are going to use, what safety matters, safety issues we have to take care of, and of course, what are quality requirements, and what is procedure and what machineries we have to use, approximately how many workers we have to use and which classes of workers we have to use or engage. And likewise, we can say whatever documents we are depending upon, all these make some format of method statement or procedure statement. I'm not inclined to say that you have to write essay or thesis on that, but some points which you clearly tell them. And of course, there are two ways. Some method statements are general or generic, and some are work based. In generic, you can say what is methods for formwork erection, what is method of scaffolding, what is method of cutting and bending steel, likewise what is method of finishing items, how to do plaster, how to do rendering, how to do painting, or you can say how to do pouring if this is not specific. These general or generic method statements can be repeated or can be considered typical, while statements those which are specific. We have to plan properly for each case. That's what we can say method statement or work procedure for every activity is a must, and it should tell formally about what is to be done on works, and that must be done for quality realization, or else there can be no real control on works and therefore on projects. Expression of specific details in convenient format for work performance and designed sequence. And because of that, output suffers, resulting in bad standards of works produced. Method statements must be made necessary for activities implementation, or else diverse ways can be adopted by site teams. Forgetting necessary communication based coordination approach and consequences would remain result will remain a result without achieving whatever level any level of uniformity is reliability, which itself communicates what does it mean. If you have to rely on something, you must have ability to rely, and which defines its equation, which says reliability equal to safety from all involved factors. Safety from all involved factors, added to which successful serviceability for taking responsibility, and all foregoing issues must be considered along with all possible risks, or else if failed all efforts go in vain. And analysis. Now reliability, कोई भी काम हम करें, कोई भी काम वो इतना स्ट्रांग होना चाहिए जिसके ऊपर हम आने वाले समय में अच्छी तरह से निर्भर रहें, बेटर हो सकता है वो करें। हम उसको कह सकते हैं क्वालिटी वर्क, कि जो हम चाहते थे, हमने जिसके बारे में सोचा था, जो भी स्कीम बनाई थी, प्रोजेक्ट बनाया था, प्लान किया था, उस समय के लिए उस क्वालिटी के साथ, उस सेवाओं के साथ वो चलता रहे, बिना बिना किसी फेलियर के। और उसको करने के लिए हमें क्या करना होता है, बहुत लंबा प्रोसीजर होता है एनालिसिस का, जिसमें हर बात को सोचा जाना आवश्यक है। हर बात को सोच के करना, कैसे करना, क्या करना, ये बहुत आवश्यक है। और हम इसको बैठे बैठाए नहीं कर सकते, इसको बहुत कुछ सोचना पड़ता है। और उसके बाद हम आते हैं एक आदमी काम नहीं कर सकता, काम करने के लिए ग्रुप चाहिए होता है। एक आदमी सोच जरूर सकता है, लेकिन डिटेल्स रन करने के लिए सोचना तो एक आदमी का ज़्यादा अच्छा होता है। अगर आप ग्रुप में सोचने को दें, understand also what does contract mean. Last time we discussed about many such clauses, and we had covered certificates payments also. I remember we covered that. Monthly payments we covered, and time for payment we covered. Payment of retention money, I think we had gone to this level, payment of retention money. Okay, let's keep yourself, I repeat this 60, let's keep back to 60, and that is certificates and payments. Now I am still talking about certificates and payment, but what is contract? Also again I have to repeat, we have to remember every time what is important is what we understand by construction contract. आखिर कंस्ट्रक्शन कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की आवश्यकता क्या है? वाई डू वी नीड इट? You see, you may be an engineer, you may be a contractor. As far as work is concerned, it doesn't differentiate between two. It's our device, it's our way how to do a job. Because it's not one person job. Construction cannot be done by one person. It's not a piece of art. It's not poetry writing, or it's no paper. Just we write for publication, where one person can do that. It is construction where physical activity is involved based on thinking, and that is done by designing people. And even one person can design, or more than one person can design, it doesn't matter. But what design has been done, that has to be transformed to physical production. And that physical production is not ordinary one. You cannot take it for granted about construction activities, because construction activities are very, very important activities. You can say more than everything else in your life. If you don't have construction activity, you can't stay anywhere. So construction activity is such that works for whole life, whole life, your whole life or somebody else's whole life. And that whole life means it's a permanent safety issue, permanent durability issue. We cannot simply come out of normal statement. It's not only quality, but I should say it is quality super. If some work has to serve you for many, many decades, you cannot simply name it quality work, though there's no other word we use, but it is something that can't be defined. Quality, if you talk of very simple products that can be used for 1 year or 6 months or few days, for that it is different understanding of quality. But for buildings, for structures, which are your forever friends, this quality has different meaning, because if it is bad, it cannot be made good. And if it's good, fine, it's okay. Then it can be further improved on other projects. And improvement is life. Improvement is reality. If we can improve, it's better. अपने को सुधार क्यों नहीं कर सकते? अपने काम को हम क्यों नहीं सुधार सकते? आखिर प्रॉब्लम क्या है? मटेरियल उतना ही लगना है, समय उतना ही लगना है, पर अगर हम क्वालिटी गुणवत्ता को बढ़ाएं तो क्या नुकसान है? इसीलिए हम चाहते हैं जो भी काम हो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे अच्छा हो, और यही कारण है कि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे काम दिया जाता है। आप स्वयं काम नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि आपके पास वो सब रिसोर्सेस नहीं हैं। इतने सारे रिसोर्सेस को अरेंज करना, इतने मटेरियल्स को, इतने आइटम्स को अरेंज करना, इतने वर्कफोर्स को अरेंज करना, इतनी मशीनों को, यंत्रों को अरेंज करना, इतनी भागा दौड़ी करनी, इतना हिसाब करना, क्वांटिटीज़ निकालनी, रेट्स पता करने और उनका हिसाब किताब रखना, कितने समय में कितना होगा, ये आप नहीं कह सकते कि एक व्यापारी या एक वो व्यक्ति जो बिल्डिंग बनाना चाहता है आपकी कर सकता है, जब तक कि उसको पूरा ज्ञान ना हो। और वो ज्ञान आता है इंजीनियरिंग से, वो ज्ञान आता है अभियांत्रिकी से। वी हैव टू रियलाइज दिस पॉइंट्स दैट वर्क कैन नॉट बी डन बाय एन इंडिविजुअल अलोन. You have to associate, you have to group with people. Teams are required. Construction work in every discipline is specialized work. Every activity is specialized. Every building is specialist. Because no building is same in designs. Even if designs are same, say, foundations can't be same. Foundations can vary. That's why I say every activity is designed. It is not production activity. You design one item and you produce whatever number of items. It's not that. Structural engineering is particular. You can say you have, say, to construct two buildings. One building stays here, situated here, other one situated at remote distance from this. You cannot say foundations of two will be same, there will be difference. It is therefore very important that whatever activity do is not from commercial purpose alone, it's from use purpose. You cannot simply say what profit shall be there. Yes, it's commerce, every contractor shall be interested in profit. Otherwise, why should I worry about that work if I don't get profit or don't make money? That's true, that's from commercial viewpoint. But I'm not talking commercial viewpoint here. I am talking durability viewpoint. Durability, which is very important item, very important terminology you can say. I'm talking technical durability, I'm not talking ordinary durability. Durability means whatever I put in. You say, there are phrases in our world that this is short term, this is long term, right? Something is short term and something is long term purpose. What do we understand by that? In Hindi, we call it लंबी रेस का घोड़ा और छोटी रेस का घोड़ा. What is that? It's like means if you want to reach your destination, it doesn't mean you should walk rapidly. It depends on distance of that definition where it is located. Sometimes in start you drive normally, and sometimes you start rapidly. But in both ways, performance is different. In same way, if you start very, very fast, it is not necessary, it is not essential that whole route shall be at same speed. It may decrease, it may increase. You cannot guarantee smooth driving. Same way, a construction project is a driving force. It is to be driven. It is to be driven by whom? By someone who is responsible for construction. And that is what we say, a person who does it on works. A person who takes responsibility of doing that work on site, converting designs to physical formation. And that is what expertise is. Expertise is to convert designs details to physical being, and which is very much professional work, which is very much engineering technical work, because all items you have to carry out, from survey of setting outs, from excavation to final finishes. Every discipline of engineering and every input of engineering, other branches of engineering are covered up, are pulled in for doing that job. And that is very much factual that we should understand. And this is the reason, this is the only reason that we seek some person who can do it, who does it. And that person is given responsibility of doing that work, because you are not experienced in that. I am not experienced in that. It is only that person who is specialized on such activity, and that person may be specialized particularly on buildings, or particularly on flyovers, or particularly on some other disciplines. That person can be awarded this responsibility for some consideration. So we can say, we can name that person contractor for purpose of our reference, because there is some agreement. But it's technical work, it's engineering work. If that person does not understand, either that person is to be given, that person has to use some engineers for its work, or if that person is very competent, that person can do itself. So all this procedure, you can say, all this procedure that I am referring to is called contract procedure. Work doing procedure, you can say. It's not necessary that we can do it only on contract. It can be done by our own self also. But that again, whatever role contractor had to do, that role you have to do. And no contractor can do work without engineering support. In construction, there are many promoters, many builders, many contractors. Those cannot do whatever they want to do themselves, because they are not experts. Expert service is required. That's why contracts come into action. A person, you may be qualified engineer, but you can't be a contractor until you have experience, until you can take financial responsibility, quality responsibility, safety responsibility, progress responsibility, and ultimately durability responsibility. You have to think about material and propose good materials. It's up to you, and up to that. It's not a contractor. This person is highly technical. This person is professional, because that works demands that. You cannot simply speak only, I contractor. Contractor means you as owner and that person as contractor have to go on that line or that corridor of this project. Therefore, we cannot just ignore expertise requirement on contracts, and every valuable project, every project where responsibility of doing that in given time lies in, and that is very important part, technical part, commercial part, analytical part, design part, or whatever you can say. Therefore it's a question of analysis. How do you understand what is work? Analysis doesn't mean mathematics alone. This means we have to see what challenges are, and we have to see what risks are. We have to see what problems are. All these are required to be contemplated, to be thought, to be devised with results. So those people who understand all this, those people who know value of contracts, because it's not simply construction contract, it's design contract also, it's procurement contract also. All acts are involved in contracts when it is a package contract, or we can say it is lump sum, it's a lump sum fixed price contract where total responsibility of work lies in not only one activity, all activities, not only one part, all parts. And it is not everybody's headache, it's not everybody's job that you can give a fixed price. It involves lot of work, lot of calculation, voluminous study of documents. Volumes of documents are available which have been given by someone who have many senior staff with them, and these documents are required to be studied thoroughly by a prospective tenderer or prospective contractor who wants to do that job. You can say it's a kind of real examination in life, that you go for bid and get award. It's not contractor alone, it is engineering contractor, it is construction contractor that we should say is very important job. And that is the reason I am going to share with you contracts information in this page that you are viewing. This is general conditions of contract. On this was this was one of typical document that we use in one state of Qatar, and of course in many other states as well, because these are very standard conditions that can be copied by everyone. Copied in a sense of essence, and not saying language copy. And certificate and payments we are talking of here. And what is certificate and payment? And then work has been done. Work has been done, it may be in part or it may be in full. That is required to be paid to contractor. That's purpose of contractor is whole works that are done in the contracts, only contractor is responsible for that in lump sum fixed price contracts, because you cannot change any price, you cannot change after it's agreed. You may have loss or you without a loss, it's different, but that price should cover everything, every aspect of that contract. You have to just think of that work and do it. Prices you checked, you verified, and then you have submitted, and if it's accepted, you are contractor of that job. Means you are contracting, means it's not easy. Contract is not easy because it involves works progress, it involves liability on that, it requires all other responsibility on that. The contract is such a wonderful world where you accept responsibility directly. You accept responsibility directly, and you have to solve that yourself. And that's why we say engineering business is very critical. It's very critical business because you have to do right job. And if you don't do right job, this may not be accepted. There are many reasons for that. So my friends, contracting is not ordinary work. It's very specialized work, and it, you can say, intelligent work, I should say, because it's intelligent, and every engineer who works on contracts, or who reports to someone who works on contract, I mean, you are a person who supports a contract procedure. There are, means, every person, there are many persons on such projects to work on, and you cannot take it just because contractor name it's like this. Contractor means it is your friend on that project. It's your friend to help you finish this job, and that person should be considered respectable, honorable. We know there are many irrelevant people in industry of construction. Those people who got no knowledge, and they depend on practical aspects, and practical aspects means if they have moved on the wrong path, they will keep moving on the wrong path, and if they move on the right path, they will like to improve that further. This is human tendency. हर आदमी अच्छा काम करना चाहता है, लेकिन नहीं करता, क्यों नहीं करता, ये उसको सोचना है। उसको बताया तो जा सकता है, लेकिन करना तो उसी को है। इसलिए वी हैव टू वेरी केयरफुल। I just wanted to give a background of contracts, and main point in that contract lies in payment, because ultimately payment is to be given to a person, to a contractor, and a contractor has to work for that payment, and that's what relation is all about. There's no other relation. I am an expert. I want to serve you. You may say contracting is also a service to society. I'm talking of professionalism. It's a profession. Contract is profession. It's not simply simple way. It's high profile agreement that we are talking of. Because contract can be written as well as can be without writing, but construction contracts are always given detailed writing. Because our documents that we prepare in contracting or in designs, all documents must be of speaking category, not of silence category, and these must be these must be respected accordingly. If a contractor, in fact, a contractor cannot sign in blindness, in darkness. Contractor knows what works are required, how much it will cost it. And if you are experienced, you can just going through drawings and finding some area. You can simply I can say, not exactly, you can simply reach to a figure which is called consideration in that. And if you have lump sum price contract, then no use of arguing, no use of leading to some other reference. You have to find yourself in that position. That position is very important. So when I say contract, it is something high profile, it's something even more than physical potential, electrical potential, than other potentials. This engineer is different, and therefore must be handled accordingly. And I would rather say there should be qualification requirements for contractors also. It's not simple ability but also basic knowledge that they should have. If you don't have basic knowledge, you cannot do successful contract. That's also true. And you cannot go each time to someone to know what does it say, what that some people I've seen do like that. Engineering construction demolished or dismantled until there's such issue. That also has changed because of everybody is happy to stay home. So what I was talking about, contracts, payments, monthly statement we talked of, it's only refreshing. I'm just trying to show you. I've already talked on that and you might have understood that one. It says contractor shall submit to engineer at end of each month a statement in form approved by engineer, as well as you can say showing amounts of to which contractor may consider itself entitled up to end of month in respect of estimated value in accordance with contract on permanent work executed on site and forming part of work, estimated value in accordance with contract of whatever materials on site for permanent works supplied by contractor, but not such items in bill of quantities not included, or what other item, what other sums or charges to which contractor may consider himself entitled under terms of contract. And what is monthly payment? Engineer, you can say, may start. Engineer shall after examination, engineer shall after examination of each such monthly statement issue an interim certificate to owner with a owner with a copy to contractor certifying amount of payment to contractor which engineer shall consider due and of percentage of retention stated in tender or bid until amount so retained reaches limit of retention money stated in tender, provided that engineer shall not issue an interim certificate if amount thereof would be less than minimum amount of interim certificate stated in tender. After deducting retention money and whatever sums which are due and payable to owner by contractor in terms of contract. आप जानते हैं रिटेंशन मनी क्या होती है? सिंपल बता देता हूँ आपके नॉलेज के लिए, अगर आप नहीं जानते। वैसे तो सब जानते होंगे। अगर आपने 100 रुपये की पेमेंट करनी है कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को, वर्क 100 रुपये का किया है उसने, उस 100 रुपये की पेमेंट हम देना चाहते हैं, लेकिन उसमें से 10% हम रोक लेते हैं। वो जो 10% होती है, प्रैक्टिस है, वो 10% हम रोक लेते हैं। उस 10% को हम कहते हैं रिटेंशन मनी। और हर पेमेंट में 10% रोकी जाती है। हाँ, अगर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में डिफाइन है कि इससे ज़्यादा आप नहीं कर सकते, इस अमाउंट से ज़्यादा आप नहीं कर सकते, उस अमाउंट पे आके फिर आपको उससे ज़्यादा नहीं कर सकते, फिर रोकना पड़ता है। इसको कहते हैं रिटेंशन मनी। रोकने का मतलब ये नहीं है कि ये हम रखेंगे हमेशा हमेशा के लिए। इसका मतलब ये है जब कॉन्ट्रैक्ट समाप्त हो जाएगा, फाइनल हो जाएगा, काम का हमसे काम करने का रिश्ता ख़त्म हो जाएगा, मेंटेनेंस शुरू हो जाएगी, और मेंटेनेंस का भी एक लिमिट है, और उसके बाद उसका पैसा जो बचाया हमने, छोड़ा हमने, पकड़ा हमने रिस्क कवर करने के लिए, वो उसको वापस दिया जाएगा। अपॉन इशू ऑफ सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ कंप्लीशन, कंप्लीशन की बात कर रहे हैं हम, अब कंस्ट्रक्शन की बात नहीं हो रही. अपॉन इशू ऑफ सर्टिफिकेट ऑफ कंप्लीशन with respect to whole works, one half of retention money, one half of retention money. It is where a certificate of completion is issued and respect to path of works only. Such proportion of one half of retention money, retention fund as engineer determines, having regard to relative value of such part of works, shall become due and payable to contractor. Upon issue of completion certificate, can say half of money can be released. And upon experience, can say for whole works, other half of retention money, shall become due and payable to contractor, provided that if 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 at such time there shall remain to be executed by contractor whatever work order pursuant to pursuant to pursuant to clause, other clauses, in respect of whole or whatever part of works, owner shall be entitled to withhold payment if contractor is not a national company. Half of retention money payable in accordance with sub-clause shall only be released against an equivalent bank guarantee valid until end of maintenance period. This is for foreign companies, foreign worlds, but it may be whatever procedure is that. And time for payment. Time for payment. Payment upon each of engineer's interim certificate shall be made by owner to contractor within time stated in contract documents, form of tender. After such certificate has been delivered to contractor, delivered to Department of General Finance Affairs Ministry. I mean to say, copy is delivered to contractor and engineer sends a copy to owner, whoever is owner, government or non-government. Engineer certifies amount of payment and that certificate is given to owner and copy to contractor. Correction and withholding of certificates. Correction and withholding of certificates. Engineer may buy whatever interim certificate, make whatever correction or modification in previous certificate which shall have been issued by self, by engineer, and have power to withhold whatever interim certificate if works or whatever part thereof are not being carried out to its satisfaction. All payments will be made in currency of Qatar. So it is currency of nation, you can say. Retention of subcontractors. Contractor shall apply terms of retention and release all retention monies are nominated on nominated subcontractors' accounts in manner set forth in instructions given by engineer under terms of the given clause. Such instruction shall be similar to those set out in other subsections of this clause, but related to terms of nominated subcontract in place of terms for this contract, and release of retention monies to nominated subcontractor shall not affect in whatever way, in any way, terms for release, and terms and release of retention monies refer to other. As soon as possible after issue of certificate of completion for whole work, contractor shall submit to engineer a statement of final account. Showing details in form approved by engineer, value in accordance with contract of all works. Executed under contract. Engineer shall, after examining final account, certify to honor amount of payment which engineer considers due and payable in accordance with terms of contract, and honor shall pay sum so certified within a period of 45 days. In this contract is 45 days, not necessary, it can be less also, from receipt of engineer's final certificate. That continues it. Concerning income tax and circulars implementing it, if contract is not a national company, final payment shall not be released unless contractor submits a tax clearance certificates from income tax department of ministry of whatsoever. Approval only by maintenance certificate. No certificate other than maintenance certificate. No certificate other than maintenance certificate referred to in clause given hereof shall be deemed to constitute approval of whatever work or other matter in respect of which it is issued or shall be taken as an admission of due performance of contract or whatever part thereof, or of accuracy of whatever claim, whatever claims or demand made by contractor or of additional or varied work having been ordered by engineer, nor shall whatever work, nor shall whatever work I'm sorry, some health problem. No, I read it again. See, there's some gas trouble. Okay, I read it again. I missed. Oh my God. I repeat this approval only by maintenance certificate, and there is no certificate other than maintenance certificate as referred to shall be deemed to constitute approval of work, whatever work or other matter in respect of which it is issued or shall be taken as an admission of due performance of contract or whatever part thereof, or of accuracy of whatever claim or demand made by contractor or of additional or varied work having been ordered by engineer, nor shall whatever other certificate conclude or prejudice any of powers of engineers. Maintain contract shall not be considered complete. Contract shall not be considered complete until a maintenance certificate shall have been signed by engineer and delivered to owner, stating that works have been completed and maintained to its satisfaction. Maintenance certificate shall be given by engineer 28 days after expiration of period of maintenance. Expiration of latest such period or as soon as thereafter as whatever works ordered during such period pursuant to given clauses hereof shall have been completed to satisfaction of engineer, and full effect shall be given to this clause, notwithstanding whatever previous entry on works or taking possession, working of using thereof, or whatever part of contractor of second portion of retention money in accordance with conditions set out in given clause. Then cessation of PW is liability. PWA here is honor. That's why we're calling Public Works Authority. So don't be confused. We are saying cessation of employer's liability. You may say owner's liability. Owner is employer. Owner shall not be, or employer shall not be liable to contractor for any matter, or thing arising out of or in connection with contract or execution of works unless contractor shall have made a claim in writing in respect thereof before giving of maintenance certificate under this clause. I repeat, PWA, or you can say employer, shall not be liable to contractor for any matter or thing arising out of or in connection with contract or execution of works, unless contractor shall have made a claim in writing in respect thereof before giving of maintenance certificate under this clause. Unfulfilled obligations, notwithstanding issue of maintenance certificate, contractor and owner or employer shall remain liable for fulfilling of whatever obligation incurred under provisions of contract prior to issue of maintenance certificate, which remains unperformed at times such certificate is issued, and for purposes of determining nature and extent of whatever such obligation, contract shall be deemed to remain in force between parties thereto. It's the important one, because obligations have not been filled. This remains unfulfilled. Notwithstanding issue of maintenance सर्टिफिकेट, आपने इशू भी कर दिया मेंटेनेंस सर्टिफिकेट्स के बावजूद, करने के बाद भी कॉन्ट्रैक्टर और एम्प्लॉयर दोनों लायबल हैं ऑब्लिगेशंस को पूरा करने के लिए। कौन से ऑब्लिगेशन? जो भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में है, मेंटेनेंस सर्टिफिकेट शुरू होने से पहले जो परफॉर्म नहीं हुए और सर्टिफिकेट इशू हुआ for purpose of determining nature and extent of whatever such obligation. Therefore, it's a different क्या है और शक्तियां क्या हैं। देखिए, वी आर टॉकिंग कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग सब्जेक्ट, ऑल्सो आई कैन से इट्स वेरी बोरिंग सब्जेक्ट। इट्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग if you are interested, if you are a professional, and it's very boring if you are a story reader or a poetry reader. You cannot find joy in some subjects. You can enjoy only in your own. If you have some family member who has nothing to do with this, then for that person there's nothing to do in the world. If contractor becomes bankrupt, दिवालिया हो गया ठेकेदार, if contractor becomes bankrupt or got a receiving order made against it present his petition, shall present its petition in bankruptcy or make an arrangement with assignment or assignment in favor of its creditors, or shall agree to carry out contract under a committee of inspection of creditors, or being a corporation go to liquidation. Go to liquidation other than a voluntary liquidation for purpose of amalgamation or reconstruction. Or if or if contractor or if contractor shall if contract assign contract without consent and in writing of employer, first to obtain, or shall have an execution levied on its goods, or if engineer shall certify or if contract shall assign contract without consent and writing of employer, first to obtain, or shall have an execution levied on its goods, or if engineer shall certify in writing to employer that in its opinion contractor has abandoned without reasonable excuse and has failed to continue or commence works, or has suspended progress of works for 28 days after receiving from engineer written notice to proceed, has failed to remove materials from site or to pull down and replace works for 28 days after receiving from engineer written notice that said materials or work had been condemned and rejected by engineer under these conditions, or is not executing work in accordance with contract, or is persistently is not executing work for accordance with contract, or is persistently or flagrantly neglecting to carry out obligations under contract, or has to detrimental of good workmanship, or in defiance of engineer's restriction to leverage has to detrimental of good workmanship, or in defiance of engineer's instruction to after employer may, after giving 14 days notice in writing to contractor, enter upon site and works and expel contractor therefrom, without thereby avoiding contract or releasing contractor from whatever its liabilities, obligations, or under contract, affecting powers, rights and powers conferred on employer or engineer by contract. And may himself or itself complete works, or may employ some other contractor to complete works, and an employer or such contractor may use for such completion so much of constructional plant, temporary works, and materials which have been deemed to become property of employer for construction and completion of works under provisions of contract, as it or they may think proper. And PWA or employer may at whatever time sell either of said construction plant, temporary works, and unused materials, and apply proceeds sale into towards satisfaction of whatever sums due or which may become we are talking for future. जपत कैसे करें? Valuation at date of forfeiture. Date of forfeiture. It's the important point, of course. Engineer shall, as soon as may be practicable, after whatever such entry and expulsion by employer, fix and determine ex parte, or by or after reference to parties, or after such investigation or inquiries as it may think fit, to make or institute, and shall certify what amount, if it is due, what amount had at time of such entry and expulsion be between expulsion being expulsion being time of such entry and expulsion being reasonably earned by and would reasonably accrue to contractor in respect of work actually done by it under contract, and what was value of any of said unused or partially used material and construction plant and temporary works. I repeat, engineer shall, as soon as may be practicable, after whatever such entry or expulsion by employer, fix and determine ex parte, or by or after reference to parties, or after such investigation or inquiries as it may think fit, to make or institute, and shall certify what amount had to be at a time of such entry and expulsion being reasonably earned by or would really accrue to contractor in respect of work then actually done by it under contract, and what was value of whatever of said unused or partially used materials, whatever constructional plant and whatever temporary works. Payment after forfeiture. The payment after forfeiture, it's also very significant point because we have forfeited machines etc. temporarily. Sorry, gentlemen, I'm sorry. Some gastric. If employer shall enter and expel contractor under this clause, employer shall not be liable to pay to contractor whatever money on account of contract until expiration of period of maintenance and thereafter until costs of completion and maintenance damages for delay in completion and all other expenses incurred by employer have been ascertained and in and say them. So it says, let us say, it's an important point. If employer shall enter and expel contractor under clause, employer shall not be liable to pay to contractor any money on account of contract until expiration of period of maintenance and thereafter until costs of completion and maintenance damages for delay in completion and all other expenses incurred by employer have been ascertained and amount thereof such sums or sums as engineer may certify would have been due to it upon due completion by it after deducting said amount. But if such amount exceeds a sum which would have been payable to contractor on due completion by it, then contractor shall upon demand pay to PWA or authority amount of such access, and it shall be deemed a debit due by contractor to authority Now, what do you say if such amount exceeds sum which would have been payable to contractor on due completion by it? Then contractor shall upon demand pay to employer amount of such excess and shall be deemed to be debit from debit due by contractor to authority and shall be recoverable accordingly. By reason of by reason of whatever accident or failure or other event occurring to in or in connection with works or whatever part thereof, either during execution of works or during period of maintenance. Whatever remedial or other work or repair in opinion of engineer or engineer's representative and contractor is unable or unwilling at other workmen or other workmen and other alright, then we can say if work or repair contractor was liable to do at its expense under contract, all costs and all costs and charges, all costs and charges properly incurred by employer in so doing shall on demand be paid. Now we can simply say, once again I read this for your relaxation, clear understanding. If work of repair done by employer is work which in opinion of engineer of contractor was liable to do at its own expense under contract, all costs and charges properly incurred by employer in doing so shall demand be paid by contractor to employer or may be deducted by employer from whatever money is due or which may become due to contractor, provided always that engineer or engineer's representative shall, as soon as after occurrence of whatever such emergency as may be reasonably practicable, notify contractor thereof in writing. no liability for war, etc. No liability for war, etc. Notwithstanding anything in contract drawing, contract contained कुछ भी होना कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में, लेकिन notwithstanding whatever in contract contained, special risk we are talking, special risk, that is special of course, contractor shall be under no liability, contractor shall be under no liability whatsoever, whether by way of indemnity or otherwise, whether by way of indemnity or otherwise, for or in respect of destruction of or damage to works, in respects of destruction or damage to works. Or temporary works. I am leaving this bracket statement so that you may not confuse. In bracket is written save to work condemned under provisions hereof prior to occurrence of whatever special risk hereinafter mentioned. So I am just taking it separately. So you can say contract shall be under no liability whatsoever, whether by way of indemnity or otherwise, for or in respect of destruction of or damage of to works or temporary works or to property whether of employer or third party, or in respect of injury or loss of life, which is consequence whether direct or indirect of war hostilities, in whatever way war be declared or not, invasion, act of foreign enemies, rebellion, revolution, insurrection, or military or usurped power, civil war, or other motion or disorder, hereinafter comprehensively referred to as said special risks. And employer must indemnify and save harmless contractor against and from same and against and from all claims, demands, proceedings, damages, cost, charges, and expenses whatsoever arising out thereof or in connection therewith, and shall compensate contractor for whatever loss or damage to property of contractor used or intended to be used for purpose of works, including property in transit to site, and occasioned either directly or indirectly by said special risks. For purposes of this clause, expression property of contractor shall include whatever plant, brought onto site by contractor, property in which, under terms of given clause herein hereof, is deemed to become property of employer. Uh, I repeat this. It's long clause. Says, contractor contractor shall be under no liability whatsoever, whether by way of indemnity or otherwise, for or in respect of destruction or damage of works or temporary works, or to property whether of employer or third parties, or for or in respect of injury or loss of life, which is a consequence, whether direct or indirect, of war hostilities, invasion, insurrection or military or usurped power, civil war or riot, commotion or disorder, referred to as said special risks, and employer shall indemnify and save harmless contractor against and from same and against and from all claims, demands, proceedings, damages, costs, charges, or in connection therewith, and shall compensate contractor for whatever loss of or damage to property to contractor used or intended to be used for purpose of works, and occasioned either directly or indirectly by said special risks. So we can say, as we said already, very simply, for purpose of this clause, expression property, the contract of contractor shall include whatever plant brought onto site by contractor, property in which, under terms of this clause, deemed to become property of contractor. Works of whatever material on or near or transit to site shall sustain destruction or damage. And you can say, again I say, if works of whatever materials, whether for farmer of later on or near or transit to site shall sustain destruction or damage by reason of whatever said special risks, the contractor shall nevertheless be entitled to payment for whatever permanent work and for whatever materials. Materials so destroyed or damaged, and so contractor shall be entitled to be paid by employer cost of making good whatever such destruction or damage, whether it works or temporary works, and of replacing or making good such materials so far as may be required by engineer, or as may be necessary for completion of works on a prime cost basis, plus such profit as engineer may certify to be reasonable. Exile, destruction, damage, injury, or loss of life caused by explosion or impact whenever and wherever occurring of whatever time, occurring any mine, bomb, shell, grenade, or other projectile, missile, munition or explosive of war shall be deemed to be a consequence of said special risks. These are consequences of special risks. Again, say destruction, damage, injury, or loss of life caused by explosion or impact, whenever and wherever occurring of whatever mine, bomb, shell, grenade, or other projectile, missile, munitions, or of explosive war, or shall be deemed to be constant. Owner shall repay to contractor whatever increased cost of or incidental to execution of works, other than such as may be attributable to cost of reconstruction work commended under provision this, which is howsoever attributable to or consequent or result of or in any way whatsoever connected with said special risks. But contractor shall, as soon as whatever such increase or cost shall be come to his knowledge, forthwith notify engineer thereof in writing. Employer shall repay the contractor whatever increased cost of incidental to execution of works which is howsoever attributable to or consequent on result of or in whatever way whatsoever connected with said special risk. But contractor shall, as soon as whatever such increase or cost shall come to its knowledge, forthwith notify engineer thereof in writing. आउटब्रेक ऑफ वार, लड़ाई हो गई, युद्ध हो गया. भाई गैस बहुत बन रही है. If during currency of contract, if during currency of contract there may be or shall be an outbreak of war in whatever part of world which whether financially or otherwise materially affects execution of works, contract shall unless and until contract is terminated under provisions in this clause contained use its best endeavors to complete execution of works, provided always that employer shall be entitled at whatever time after such outbreak of war to terminate this contract. Being given, this contract shall terminate, but without prejudice to rights of either party in respect of okay. Now remove plant on termination. If contract is terminated or shall be terminated, I am talking normally. If contract is terminated under provisions of proceedings of clauses war, contract shall, with its reasonable dispatch, remove from site all construction plant and give similar facilities to its subcontractors. To remove similarly all constructional plant belonging to them, and in event of whatever failure so to do, employer shall have like powers so as are contained in whereof in regard to failure to remove construction plant on completion of works, but subject to same condition as is considered as contained in clause number this. 65. So payment if contract terminated. You have to understand this point. If contract is terminated, as aforesaid, contractor shall be paid by employer. Contractor shall be paid by employer for all work executed prior to date of termination at rates and pipes. Price is provided in contract and in addition. In addition, amounts payable in respect of whatever preliminary items. And a proper proportion as certified by engineer of whatever such items, work or service comprised in which has been partially carried out or performed. Cost of materials or goods which shall be delivered to contractors, or of which contractor is legally liable to accept delivery. You can say cost of material goods reasonably ordered for works of temporary works which shall have been delivered to contractor or which contractor is legally liable to accept delivery that you have to pay. Then you can say if reasonably incurred by contractor or in accept expectations of completing whole works insofar as such expenditure under provisions of these clauses. Reasonable cost of removal under this subclause if required by contractor. Return thereof in use. Of repatriation of all contractor staff and work persons employed on project or in connection with works at time of such termination, provided always that against whatever payments due from employer under this subclause, employer shall be entitled to be credited with whatever outstanding balances due from contractor for advance in respect of plant and materials, and whatever similar previously paid by कहते हैं Payment in event of contract being frustrated, whether by war, by giving notice in writing to contractor, and upon such notice being given, this contract shall terminate, but without antecedent breach thereof, but without prejudice to contract shall be terminated as aforesaid. Sum payable by employer to contractor in respect of work executed shall be same as that which would have been payable under clause. If contract has been terminated under provisions of clauses. If contract shall be terminated as aforesaid, sum payable by employer to contractor in respect of work executed shall be same as that which would have been payable under different clause hereof if contract had been terminated under provisions of clauses. On termination, as stipulated hereof, as though contract had been terminated under provisions of different clause, contract shall also clean sight hereof as though of disputes. If whatever dispute or difference, arises between employer or engineer and contractor in connection with or arising out of contract or execution of works, shall in first place best solution if whatever dispute or difference arises between employer and engineer and in connection with arising out of contract or execution of works, it shall in first place be referred to and settled by engineer, who within a period of 90 days after being requested by the party Alright, so we say it shall in first place be referred to and settled by engineer who shall by who shall within a period of 90 days after being requested by the party to do so give written notice of its decision to PWA or authority or and until completion of works and shall forthwith be given effect to by contractor who proceed with works with all due diligence, whether or not it or, or empowerment authority, PWA or employer requires to refer such dispute or difference to court as hereafter provided and shall be settled according to of its decision in accordance with requirement of this clause within 90 days or if authority or if owner or employer or contractor has reason to dispute engineer's decision, then PWA or contractor may refer dispute to competent authorities. Competent authorities. So that's a very important point. I say 90 days. So we can say, let's repeat, if engineer fails to give a written notice of its decision in accordance with the requirement of this clause within 90 days, or if employer fails or contractor has reasons to do that, you can say, or if or okay, then we can say contact me only. You may say if engineer fails to give written notice of its decision in accordance with this clause provision in 90 days, or if owner and contractor has reason to dispute engineer's decision, then you can say owner or contractor may refer dispute to Khatri or competent court, national competent court of justice, provided that 15 days. Now, contractor may, you can say, court has reason to dispute. Employer contractor has have reason to dispute engineer's decision then both may refer dispute to competent court of justice provided that 15 days written notice has been given. Engineer this do so. In dispute to court up to a date not later than 6 months from date of issue of maintenance certificate. Whatever such references as aforesaid shall not in whatever way vitiate or invalidate contract, neither shall it be grounds for contractor to cease work, nor for employer to terminate with works with all due diligence. All such references, all such references as aforesaid shall be governed by law of nation and all judicial proceedings effect in that state. In event of litigation between parties, all official legal proceedings within or without court relating thereto shall be in local language unless court decides. So we are here on notices. It's at notices, and it is very simple here. We say service of notices on contractor. Whatever notice to be given to contractor under terms of contract shall be served by sending same by post owner. Whatever notice to be given to owner or employer under terms of contract shall be served by sending same by post to same at its office in that state. Services of notice on engineer's representative. Whatever notice to be given to engineer's representative under terms of contract shall be served by sending same by post to or leaving same to engineer's representative's office in that state. And also nowadays it's old one, it is, but there are emails, there are other ways, official ways, and the IT Act. If email is available, that can be used, or if other mediums are available, that can also be used. But it depends on agreement between two parties. Of employer failing to pay to contractor amount due under whatever certificate of engineer within time stated in tender, or interfering with or obstructing issue to court either during execution of works or not later than 6 months after date of maintenance certificate. This is time limit mentioned in this document, in this standard, 6 months after date of maintenance certificate. And court contractor shall refer matter to court either during execution of works or not later than 6 months after date of maintenance certificate. Matters so referred to shall be governed by state laws and Other conditions, contractor shall comply with statutes, ordinances, laws, regulations, and bylaws of state where work goes on, shall be responsible for ascertaining extent and incidence of all taxes, customs, rates, dues, and all other charges payable in accordance with such statutes. Ordinance of contract and aforementioned statutes, ordinances, laws, regulations, and bylaws. And maintenance of works shall be erected in such positions and used or executed at such times and in such a manner as is indicated in program to be provided by contractor under terms of clause given of these conditions of contract or whatever subsequent modifications to such program agreed by engineer and are most efficient and suitable for proper, timely, and safe execution of work. Materials, transport, and requirements of every kind, and for methods adopted by it for proper execution of works in accordance with contract. Otherwise specified, make all its own arrangements for supply and distribution of water, fuel, light, and power to all points where they are required for all operations under contract, and for this purpose shall provide and use all necessary constructional plant, temporary works, materials, transport, and requirements of every kind necessary to supply and distribute supplies to various parts of works, including also for a satisfactory supply of water to offices, camps, latrines, and other temporary. Contractor shall take all risks from water, whatever source or cause may be, at its own expense, unless otherwise specified. So properly deal with and dispose of water by use of sufficient construction plant, temporary works, materials, transport, and requirements of every kind, as to ensure whole works being executed in a satisfactory, dry, and safe manner, in accordance with requirements of contract. employer on site. Contractor shall obtain its own information with regard to granting of import and export licenses. Contractor shall bear expense of and shall obtain all import and export licenses for construction plant, materials, equipment, and be deemed to have satisfied itself with regard to all its liabilities under statutes, ordinances, requirements. Here is by Court of Israel. Contract shall be construed and operative and shall be if air travel by personal and work persons or air freight of materials are required in execution of works, contractor shall ensure that its personnel and work persons and all other persons in its employment in connection with works travel exclusively on which airways he has to define if it is required on all journeys to and from Doha or whatever country you have, state you have, you can contract shall be fined 20%, here it's mentioned 20% of value of item purchased outside nation or group of countries and shall be subject to further penalties in accordance with whatever article. So it's punitive law, it's punitive article, punitive clause. Owner or employer may without prejudice to whatever other method of recovery deduct amount of such fine or punitive action from whatever monies in its hands due or which may become due. Details to be confidential. Bribery and corruption, boycott of some country, law to apply air and sea transport to and from state and material and of course settlement of disputes. Then we have gone through prestations and payment are liability for war, and that's risk regarding damages to works by special risks, projectile, missile, increased cost arising from special risks. We have gone through remedies and powers, forfeiture, valuation at date of forfeiture, correction and withholding of certificates, currency of account, retention on subcontracts, final account, approval only by maintenance certificate, sums, provisional sums and prime cost sums, use of provisionals and contingency items, production of vouchers, cash discount, assignment of subcontractors obligations, quantities, variation to be measured, foundations, method of measurement, day work, cost for purposes of clause 63 or whatever, contractor certificate as to hiring provisions, hire purchase payments by employer, removability of certain plant, revesting, removal and failure to remove plant, liability for loss or injury to plant, incorporation of clause in subcontracts, approval of materials, etc. And of course, maintenance and defects, definition of period of maintenance, execution of work of repair, cost of execution of work of repair, remedy on contract, commencement time delays and delays, commencement of works, position of site, values, time for completion, extension of time of completion, no night or Friday or Saturday or holiday work, rate of progress, imposition of penalty, deduction of penalty, construction consultants fees and for delayed completion, ensure to be approved. Extraordinary traffic, special loads, settlement of extraordinary traffic claims, waterbound traffic, opportunities for other contractors, supply of plant, materials and labor, workers, cycle. And of course, contract documents, language, documents mutually explanatory, custody of document drawings, one copy of drawings to be kept on site, drawings to be provided by contractor. Then engineers representative, duties and powers of engineers representative, and of course definitions and interpretations. Definitions singular and plural, marginal heads or notes, and this is general conditions contents. We try to share with you what we have studied in this document. These are very important that we have gone through. We have gone through this document.